All right. So top of the morning, y'all. I'm channeling Jessica. Welcome to Comet Sprint 20 review. This sprint started December 7th and it ends today. And the sprint wraps up the Surfliner Fall 2022 work cycle. As a reminder, the overall theme for this entire work cycle was to shore up batch work for ingest using the BulkRax engine and to get batch round trip working. And related to that was ironing out details surrounding managing files and relationships between objects. And then last, a lot of work was put into Shoreline and Comet integration. We have Tamsin here, and we're going to have Amy to go into more detail about what was accomplished during this final sprint of the year. And happy holidays! Tamsin, take it away.
Sure. So I'll just reiterate that the goals of the work cycle were around bulk ingest and export. And in a sort of continuing theme from the last work cycle, we've been interested particularly in tying together ingest through Comet into the geospatial platform Shoreline. So what we're going to do for the demo is I'm going to pass it over to Amy Work and Alex Dunn, who are going to talk a little bit about the work that's been happening on the Shoreline side. And then I'll come back and say just a little bit about the work we're doing to support that on the Comet end, but that isn't tremendously demoable. And then we'll do a demo of the BulkRax ingest. It's been brought to my attention that BulkRax is a like indeterminate pronunciation. It's like a pun on Hyrax, which is the platform, Bulk Hyrax, which is the Hyrax is the platform that Comet is based on. So we'll show that the import and export process for that, and I can talk a little bit about how that ties into the work that Amy and Alex are about to show. So with that, I think, Amy, it's in your capable hands.
Okay, thank you. So I'll share my screen. So one of the big things that we implemented, I guess, in this work cycle is the upgrade to GeoBlacklight 4.0, which has some major changes, including breaking changes, but we were able to resolve through some of those. So we've upgraded to GeoBlacklight 4.0 that has been pushed out. And so I'm showing you Santa Barbara's production site, in which we were able to take the GeoBlacklight 1.0 metadata compatible files, use an auto converter to convert the solar index data into aardvark compatible, and then ingest that in. So that was a great process as well. But what does that look like in sort of the actual site? So we can search by data type. I'm just going to search for some polygon-based data, sort of see the areas, and I'm just going to take a look at, let's take a look at the 100-year flood housing data. One of the big differences on the interface for GeoBlacklight 4.0 is that the map is front and center. And so as I explore the map and I click on a point of interest on the map, I can see the attribute values down below. And previously in 1.0, all of the descriptive metadata was above the map, and it is now down below. So it's a big interface change, as well as sort of a user experience. And so if users want to download the data, they can download the data in a couple of different formats. One of the options that we have also done is allow the download of the original data set. We're currently not seeing that here because that was not part of the original ingest. When we redo these files, that will become available, but that's why we're not seeing it currently. So that is one of the great things. We're up in 4.0, and so San Diego will be working to get some of their data ingested, as well as UCLA. Alex, did you want to talk about anything else regards to this, or?
Yeah, I guess I can. So as part of this upgrade, we have been retooling how we ingest data into Shoreline. Previously, it was just a manual process run with a command line script, but that was a kind of a stopgap just while we got things set up. What we want is to be able to ingest content into Comet, not through a developer process, but as librarians putting content in, and then Comet can push that data to Shoreline. So we've been setting up that whole workflow. Yeah, I was working on the Shoreline side this sprint. So now Shoreline has the capacity to accept metadata and like a shapefile URL from an external source, whether it be Comet or a different management tool. And then it will be able to take that and put it into GeoServer and the GeoBlacklight Shoreline instance. So we don't quite have the full end-to-end setup yet, but that's where things are going.
So I think that's about us for Shoreline and the updates from this work cycle. Tamsin or Gabriella?
Great. So I can say just a little bit more about that end-to-end Comet ingest, and I think I'll get my screen share going in the meantime. Let's try. Okay, you can get out of the way. Okay, so I think you should see the Comet dashboard.
Yes.
Amazing. So I guess a couple of things have been going on the Comet side to support that end-to-end ingest. One of those is that the metadata configuration for multiple object types is that's something that we've been pretty focused on. So what that means is when we ingest geospatial data, we want to ingest it in the configure geospatial schema so that then it exports from the metadata API as the aardvark data that Shoreline needs to ingest. So there's been some work happening around that, and that's mostly infrastructure layer and not really very demoable. I think we already demoed last week a edit form for a geospatial object, and yeah, that does still work as expected. There's been some further work going on to make the display of that data in the show pages and similar behave the way that we want. And our real end goal is to be able to use the importer exporter functionality that I'm about to show you, and the published functionality that we've shown off in the past, and have that glue into the Shoreline infrastructure that Alex was just talking about. So we're not totally there yet. The metadata work continues to be a gap that's moving forward very rapidly. There's another gap that we called out to work on at the beginning of this work cycle, but didn't make a ton of progress on, and that's the file structure work. So let's grab that's a missing object that I've already deleted. So in a edit form like this, I can upload individual files or multiple files, and have them all attached to the work. But I can't really upload like a shape file and its WGS84 derivative together manually, and select like how they're gonna, because if I just do like that, I can't say what type of file this is. And that's something that we're still wanting to work on, but that fell by the wayside this work cycle, and it may end up being moot as we do most of this ingest through the importer, and that's sort of where we've been focusing our attention. Okay, so that with that, here are importers. I did a little like pre-demo import so you can kind of see here, but let's start a new one. We did have an older batch upload set up that just sort of gave you the ability to select a file and where the content's going to come from, and then off you go. But I want to do a batch metadata only import using the new bulk racks driven functionality. So let's do I can select here if there were multiple projects in this instance, then you could select them, so that controls what workflow the objects go into, amongst other things. There's a sort of limit capability here. So supposing that you wanted to sort of put a guardrail in for how many records from the CSV that we're about to upload will get ingested, we can do that. Okay. Bulk Rack supports a number of import, they call them parsers. The one that we've been working mainly with is the CSV, and that's the only one that I'm going to demo here. But I do want to point out that others, first of all, that others exist. So there is an XML parser. There is a parser that will, multiple parsers that will support qualified Dublin Core, and some of the features that we're about to see depend on the parsers, which is why when we select CSV, we'll get these options here. This, like what is configurable here, sort of depends a little bit on what the parser is. If we choose OAI, we can do another type. Bulk Racks also supports sort of scheduled imports, so we can make an importer that's targeting an OAI endpoint and say harvest it monthly. So that's a nice capability that I'm not sure is a priority for either of our campuses, but that is something that we could pursue more explicit support for if it was interesting. So okay, so that here's so we can choose a visibility for imported objects. Again, this is sort of parser specific behavior. So we could conceivably write a different parser that takes this data out of the CSV. Likewise, write statement, because it's sort of, because in HIRAX, write statement is a required field. This default parser has a capability to provide you a write statement if you didn't include it in the CSV. So we can say, like, by default, we'll use no known copyright, or override all the existing write statements to use no known copyright. So that gives you a sense of what kinds of capabilities can be written into the parsers. But this is just the default behavior that Bulk Racks ships with. Okay, so I'm going to choose a CSV to import. I can show you what that CSV looks like. It's not going to be big text. So sorry if you need to squint. But it's really just some headers, and there's 2 objects in it. And okay, so let's we can do a couple of things at this point. So we can create this importer and run validation on it. We can create this importer and run it immediately, or we can just create it and do neither of those things. I'm going to do create and validate, and that will show us, I think, a little bit of what you expect to see from each of those options. So, okay, create and validate, and that takes a second to save. It says importer validation completed, and what we'll see is now there's a list of the different the labels all still say work, but the different objects, the different collections, and the different file sets that are in this import. We saw the CSV, there's no collections or file sets, there were just these 2 objects. There's an identifier, and this is an identifier that's specific to bulk racks. It's not specific just to this import, but to bulk racks as in general, which is kind of handy because it means that if I create another importer that references these same identifiers, I can use different imports to, say, upload a bunch of objects that are in a collection, and then a separate import to upload all the collections that the objects are members of, and have that should work with references across different imports. So this is a bulk racks identifier. These objects aren't ingested yet because we did create and validate. And they don't have Comet identifiers of any kind at this point. So now we can sort of see various aspects of the import. These are mostly the options that we selected before. There's some data about what was in this import, what content was in it, and then we can continue, and that will now run that ingest. So you can see entities process 2. Again, it says works, but we can mentally replace that with objects. Total object entries. Oh, that's the old one, but they're basically the same. Okay, so now if I click through on these individual objects, I can see some info. I can see the raw metadata from the CSV that fed this record. I can see how that was interpreted by the parser, which in this case is like pretty much the same. I think we got that right statement. So that's empty in the CSV metadata, but was populated by the parser in the way that we just talked about. And now there's an object link for the new object that we just created. Okay, so that's a batch import. I think I'd like to now do an export from that same import. Okay, let's make a new export. Let's do export for demo. We can name it slightly more. I'm going to choose a metadata only export, and I have various options at this point. these are things that I think we have some control over. But the sort of normal, so I can export everything in the repository, and like then maybe the limit functionality becomes kind of interesting. There are some filters around, so you can like choose based on what workflow status the object is in, what visibility it has. There's a date filter. But probably what you want to do is start with an export either from an importer, like the one that we just ran, or from a collection. In this case, we can do like that. Okay, so let's do the importer for now. And I can let's do all the visibilities and the completed objects. I think those objects all went straight to completed on that import. And we can export as CSV. Let's just go ahead and do that. That's what we've been focused on making work. Oh, cool. We got complete with failures, which is interesting. What happened to this poor object? Oh, I know exactly what happened to this object. This is me stepping on my own toes. So do you remember how I said that these import IDs are referenceable across the imports? Yes, you probably do remember that because I've just said it. So this ID here, W1 and W2, are colliding between these two imports that I've just shown. And what I did was, oh, hello. What I did to sort of on purpose to create a thing that I could show you later was I edited one of these objects and sort of deliberately broke it with respect to how the exporter works. And I was going to use that to show you that these errors happen, and you can sort of see what happened when an individual object erred out. So this is like technical information about the failure, but there's also some info about what got fed in to cause the failure. So this is for sort of debugging and export purposes, and then because I use the same IDs for the import, we actually didn't create new objects. We just overrode the old ones, which is cool, but super annoying for this case. So you do have to be careful to make these generic or like universally unique bulk racks identifiers. If you don't provide, just to be really clear, if you don't provide either ID, let's do that and run one more import. Okay. Well, I'll just power through this super fast. CSV. I'm gonna get the CSV behavior. That was interesting. Some kind of JavaScript error there. Okay. Let's choose our options and export one. Great. And I'll do validate again. We do have this sort of pre-data item has not been yet been imported successfully. So if I had bothered to check this page last time, I would have noticed that this item link existed at this point. So these are going to be new objects. Let's create them. They've passed validation. Oh no, failed. Well, that's what I get for, I don't know why it failed. It says it failed, but it doesn't look like it failed. It looks like it succeeded. So here's my new objects. Oh, I think it failed because it stumbled on that work that didn't have any identifiers, and that's me. That's me probably not preparing properly. So we'll figure out what the story is with that. But we did get 2 objects ingested through. You can see 2 out of 3. And now if we run this export, I'm going to do a fresh one with a non-broken object. So the titles are for your reference. We'll do any visibility. And let's do create and export. Let's go straight for it. And that was fast. Okay. So the exports, especially for the metadata, are super fast. They are running in the background. So if they take a long time, they do run concurrently. But that was fast. And you can see we got some data about what exported, and either from this general export or from data page or from the export listing, I can do download of that, and it will have a CSV in it. Like the importers, the exporters have different formats and can be sort of customized at a code level. So I haven't tested the bag export on this one, so I'm not going to show us that, but we did see there's a Baget sort of by default. In theory, that could work to get you objects plus files, and additional export formats are totally possible. One nice thing I want to call out about the sort of fussiness of the ingest IDs that we've been sort of stumbling over here. So I think there are, as you have just seen, some downsides to these ID references existing, but there are some upsides as well. One of those is that if you have a metadata CSV or a spreadsheet like this that you maintain, and there's some like call number in these in there, you can sort of put that in the default CSV parser maps this bulk Rex ID to source identifier. So you can add this call number to, like if you have an existing call number, you can add that to this spreadsheet, and then if I create multiple imports from it, or if I do repeated imports of the same spreadsheet, I don't have to have exported it from Comet in order to get the IDs for the new objects. Those references are continuous. So like I could import this. In fact, why don't we just do it? Oh, I guess I changed the numbers. Let's go back. So if I maintain this spreadsheet locally, I don't have to have done an export of it to then come back, do another import, and change the content. So I'm just gonna upload it again. Same file. Write statement. We won't override. Create and validate. We got valid content. And we here, let's see, one of these was the one that I changed the title of. Not that one, the other one. So raw metadata. So we can see another title changed. I haven't yet run this import. So if we look at the object, we should see that it's still just another title. But if I come back to the import and continue it through, importing yet again, this one completed. Now, so again, I don't need to like do round tripping using Comet to consistently just maintain a spreadsheet and continually sort of re-upload it. If the spreadsheet can consistently contain the data that I want, and I'm not expecting changes to be happening on the Comet side to the metadata, then I should be able to just sort of maintain it and upload it without concern about repopulating it from Comet IDs. I can edit the importer later on and do, so now it's got the path that for the thing that I just uploaded. Like change these and say override, or I could totally change what kind of importer it is. That's probably not a good idea. Try that again. So now these are all going to in copyright. And when I choose update, I can choose to do a couple of different things. I can just update the importer and not make any changes, or I can update the metadata, or I can update the metadata and add new files versus update the metadata and replace existing files. I think this one does like a really heavy-handed delete all the old files, upload new ones kind of behavior, which maybe we should call out more explicitly. that should have changed the right statements on these, but I'm curious. Yeah, in copyright. Cool. So that's import and export. You can, despite my efforts to show you that you don't need to, you can re-import the exported CSV with some caveats. If I choose certain options. So there's some like this will include metadata that's system generated that will fail on re-ingest. And if you include it, then you can't re-upload that CSV. Again, if you did that, you would see behavior like we see here, where the records that don't validate will either say that they didn't validate or say that they failed on ingest, and give you some breadcrumbs for diagnostics. Cool. So I think we have a couple more things to be working on with this. One is that I'm showing you this from kind of an unstable test environment. So we're working hard now to get this merged in to deploy. So if you're browsing around on the Comet site, you won't see this yet. Maybe as soon as today, we'll get it through. Then I think there's some other sort of like UC labels that are not correct. There's some other stuff to work out here. Particularly, I think just to return things to the shoreline discussion, there is a need to create the file structure that we've discussed for shoreline through these ingests, and we haven't tested that explicitly yet. It may involve creating a new parser that has that capability, or extending the existing CSV parser to have that capability. So there's quite a bit more that we could be doing with this, but we are seeing successful round trip import and export, which is a big leap. We're coming down on time, and I want to offer a little bit of time for Gabriella to wrap up. So I think I'm going to end my portion there and stop screen share.
I know we are kind of short on time, but do you want to take some questions, or did you want to?
I'm open to do that. Maybe it would be a good idea to wrap up first and then stay, or wrap up first and then stay for questions, so that people who need to leave can leave.
Great idea. That's perfect. Thank you so much, Tamsin. Thank you, Amy, too. So while the next Surfliner Works cycle isn't scheduled to start until March of this coming year, we're, well, specifically Tamsin and I are going to be coming back from the holiday break, and we'll be meeting to discuss what we feel are the highest priorities for Comet for 2023. And actually, all of the Surfliner product owners and their tech leads will be meeting to add their high priority items prior to a scheduled Surfliner prioritization planning meeting that we are holding. I believe it's January 18th. So stay tuned. And with that, I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you so much again, everyone. And those that have questions and have cats behind you on shelves, Those are questions. Just stick around.